Top 5 John Cusack films next on Retro Serial. Hey everyone, before we get to our countdown, let me just encourage you to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this on your favorite social media. Those are small steps for you, but they really mean a lot for us here on the show. And if you've already done all that and you want to go that one extra step, you can always follow the link below to our Buy Me a Coffee, where I will be leaving a link there so that you can donate money to what we're doing here if you want to see us develop here and want to see us grow. So thank you very much. And now on to the list. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Retro Serial. I'm your host, DNC. I'm so glad you could be joining us for this episode where I'm giving you my top 5 picks of John Cusack films. John Cusack is by far one of my most favorite actors. Now, there are a lot of really good actors, and there are a lot of really good actors who came out of Generation X, but there are a few actors, in my opinion, that define the genre better than John Cusack does. As far as the movies he produces, and as far as how he comes across in those movies, the way he dresses, the music that's portrayed in those movies, everything about his movies really screams what is right and great about Generation X. So we're going to be talking about the top 5 movies that he has been in that really define the generation. Coming in at number 5 is High Fidelity, released in 2000. Now, this pushes the boundaries of this show a little bit because this show is really about growing up Generation X. And by 2000, I was already a young adult. However, because it's 20 years old, it still gets you that retro nostalgia effect. And I wasn't done developing in 2000. I wasn't done growing up in 2000 as a young adult, and I'm not sure I'm done growing up now. So for me, it ranks on this list and deserves to be on this list. So coming in at number 5 is High Fidelity. I loved this movie. One of the things that I really liked about this movie is it gave John Cusack a chance to talk about his music interests. Now, a lot of his movies do talk about his music interests. That's kind of one of his main themes that he does throughout the movies that he's in. But this one really focused in on it, and you could see that his music interest is part and parcel of what it means to grow up in the 80s and 90s and late 70s, 80s, and 90s. A lot of stuff he listens to are a lot of alternative and underground bands that became popular in the 90s, but were definitely underground when they first came out, and underground while a lot of us were listening to them. So number 5 is High Fidelity. Coming in at number 4 is Sure Thing, released in 1985. This is one of those iconic 80s movies where a young kid is on a quest to lose his V-card, but ends up finding love of his life with him the whole time, as I'm sure you know the show. Again, another iconic classic 80s movie. It just defines the decade. It defines what it means to grow up during that generation, and he was a part of it. As a matter of fact, he had to emancipate early. He was only 17 when he filmed. And because he was only 17, for one reason or another, he had to seek early emancipation in order to complete the film. But we're all glad he did, because that was a great movie. Coming in at number 3 is Better Off Dead. You knew this would be on my list. For me, this is one of our household traditions for our Christmas shows. We watch this every year at Christmas. It takes place over the holiday season, and so we watch it at Christmas. I don't know if it's a Christmas show for you or not, but it was certainly a Christmas show for me. But Better Off Dead was one of my favorite shows. It came out in 1985, and John Cusack actually hated the movie when it came out. When he watched it, he actually walked out of the theater, and he didn't want to work with that director again. But unfortunately, he was bound to that director, and he was obligated by contract to do 2 more films with them. So he wasn't able to get out of his contract. But he actually hated the film, which I'm sad about. I heard later that he finally said, well, you know, it's good for what it is. Well, it's not just good for what it is, but it's a great show. Now, I understand John Cusack's older than I am, so for me, I was still very much a kid when that show came out, you know, 11, 12 years old, something like that. And it was one of those movies that, as a kid of that age, it was one of those shows that me and my friends would just sit around and talk about. And it was one of those shows that got a lot of wear on VHS. So like if we went to the VHS store, and this was back, and I didn't have a personal VHS. When I went to a VHS store, we had to rent the VHS player and the VHSs themselves. And it was one of those shows that I would continually check out. Every time we did that, I would want to watch that show. And I believe it was on HBO or something like that at the time as well, when I was growing up anyway. But I remember seeing it repeatedly for one reason or another, and all my friends were into it. So it was one of those shows that, you know, when your friends are into it and you just sit around and you sit and quote it and you talk about it, almost like Monty Python. You know, for us, you know, you sit around and people sit around and talk about Monty Python shows all the time. Well, for us, Better Off Dead was one of those shows. We would just sit around and laugh, either watching the show over and over again or just talking about the show and the jokes in the show. I know, John Cusack, you didn't like the show yourself, but I got to tell you, I'm really glad that you made the film. It meant a lot to me as a kid, and I got hours and hours and hours, maybe even weeks of entertainment out of that show and out of that movie, and I still do. So thank you for making it. Number 2 position is Say Anything. Say Anything is by far one of my all-time favorite films in general, and one of my favorite John Cusack films in particular. Again, it's one of those shows that defines the era by the type of show that it is, the love interest, you know, this angst of him growing up, not knowing exactly what he wants to do with his life, except for he loves this passion of this girl that he wants to pursue, and he loves the passion of his hobby of kickboxing. This is actually what got John Cusack into kickboxing, into the martial arts world. And so for me, it's kind of an identity kind of film where I identify with it. To a great degree more than I identify with a lot of his other films. And the reason why is because I am an avid martial artist myself. If you're a devotee of the program, you know this. And so one of my dreams in my life is to actually be able to work out one of these days with John Cusack. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I would love to have that happen. I've been a lifelong martial artist. I love kickboxing, and he studied with Benny the Jet. I mean, one of the all-time great martial artists, and I would just absolutely, I mean, kind of in my wild dreams, it would be able to work out with John Cusack and maybe go through a few light sparring rounds. He outranks me, so he is a level 6 degree black belt, where I am at the most only a level 3 degree black belt, and so he would have to take it easy on me. So take it easy on me, John. But I love the film, that iconic scene with the boom box overhead, the Peter Gabriel song, the music, just what the film was about, and his own personal struggle meant a lot to everybody during that generation. So it gets the number 2 position. Number 1, I don't know if you would have guessed this or not guessed this, is Grosse Pointe Blank. Grosse Pointe Blank is by far my favorite John Cusack movie. Now, it's really hard to choose a favorite because all of these movies that I've mentioned so far are great movies, and there are many more movies that he's done that are actually really great movies, but I had to choose 5 of them. But by far above all of them would have been this movie itself, would have been Grosse Pointe Blank. I thought it had everything going for it. Okay, everything going for it. There wasn't anything in this movie that you could point to and go, oh, well, I wish I would have changed that. Again, you have awesome martial arts. I mean, it was the total package. You had awesome martial arts. As a matter of fact, that scene at the end where he fights with Benny the Jet is one of my all-time favorite martial arts scenes in any movie at all. I think it's very realistic. I think it's stylistic. I think it's well executed and well done. Again, if I could ever work out with John Cusack, I would love to work out with him. It would be awesome. Heavy on the music as well. I mean, again, you're just getting that Gen X music vibe, that underground kind of music that we all listened to, that became popular because of movies like this, and popular because the underground, as far as music, broke during the 90s. But, you know, the music soundtrack on this was just fantastic. The story was unique and fun, and you're kind of wondering, you know, is he going to get the girl? Is he not going to get the girl? And I was kind of worried at the end there that he was going to stand her up again and not bring her to the high school reunion, because as you remember in the show, he leaves prematurely. He's going to take her to prom or something like that, and then he just takes off and he goes and he joins the army, and then he becomes this hitman, and he comes back and he's seeking redemption. And then that redemption theme that's built throughout the show, where finally at the end he gets the girl, and he kind of gets out of that situation. He kind of gets out of the lifestyle that he was in. And the supporting actors were great too. I mean, everything was great. I loved Dan Aykroyd's character in it. I mean, it was just a hilarious show too. So there really isn't anything bad you could say about it. It was only positives. So was there anything on my list that, or is there anything on the list that you would have that you think that I missed? Let me know in the comments section below. Before we go, I do have to mention one John Cusack movie that actually, in reviewing this, or in doing my homework to do this show, I realized that I actually never saw this movie, which isn't uncommon. There's lots of movies, even John Cusack movies, that I've never seen. But there was one iconic movie out there that everybody was talking about as far as John Cusack movies go, and I did never see it until recently, when I just watched before I made this show, and that is Being John Malkovich. I have to say that it was a great movie. It was good. But because it didn't really affect me in my growing up years, and I didn't watch it until recently, it didn't make it on my list. Maybe if I would have watched it when it came out, it probably would have, because it was a phenomenal show. It was very interesting. A little bit on the weird side, but, you know, a lot of shows are. A little bit on the artsy side. But a good show. But I know that's probably one of those movies that people are thinking, hey, how come that's not on his list? Well, now you know. I didn't watch it until actually just a couple days ago. It's just one of those movies that slipped through the cracks. Even being a big Cusack fan as I am, I just never got around to watching it. And because it didn't affect me and it wasn't part of my growing up, it didn't make it on my list. Would it have made it on your list? I don't know. You let me know what John Cusack movies you like. What were some of your favorite ones of growing up Generation X, and we'll talk to you again. Now, before you go, please don't forget to like this video, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. These are all small steps for you. They mean a whole lot for us here on the channel. And if you want to go that one extra step, we're going to leave the link below to buy me a coffee, where you can donate some of your hard-earned cash to what we're doing here in the studio. So thanks a lot, and we will talk to you again on Retro Serial.